Coming up next.
I started working with people and I had a lot of people talking about the word trust. I need to be able to trust him again. If he can, I trust. And I started getting this strong guidance around trust, because trust is actually another level of control. So when you're using it with a human being, what you're saying is, I need to trust that you won't drink again, that when you say you're not going to go out, you're not going to make that choice. We're powerless over everything outside of ourselves. And that feels untenable. It feels like, it feels like the rug's being pulled out if you can't have that. But actually, it's a foundation in spirituality, right? Buddhism teaches that life is suffering. Suffering is wanting. It's this grasping for, right? And in a way, it's our control of trying to make everything be a certain way so that we can be what? Safe, right?
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast, where the chains of fixing and striving are broken and joy is rediscovered in Christ. You are here because you know there's more for you, a life beyond addiction's chaos, rooted in God's peace and promises. This is the place where Christian women like you learn to release the weight of fixing and striving and instead lean into God's strength to create a home filled with love, grace, and hope. She is clothed with strength and dignity. Proverbs 31:25. That's you. You may not feel like it yet, but you are stronger than you know. And God has so much more for you than carrying someone else's addiction. Here, we'll uncover how to set healthy boundaries with love and a little humor. Find resilience and grace in the messy moments of life. Celebrate small victories and embrace joy like never before. Lean into God's promises for restoration and strength, because He's not done with your story or your loved ones. This is your invitation to rise up, embrace your worth in God's kingdom, and take back what's been stolen by addiction: your peace, your joy, your future. Your faith is the foundation, and your boundaries are the bridge, and God's truth is your guide. I'm Tanya Gioia, your host and fellow traveler on this journey through the chaos of addiction. I'm here to cheer you on, equip you with tools that work, and share the truth that's changed my life. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Together, we'll uncover how to create safe, loving space for healing, starting with your own heart and home. By setting boundaries, trusting God's plan, and embracing His truth, you can reclaim your joy, your peace, and your family's future. Then you will be able to stand firm for your family and legacy as a kingdom daughter, a woman who can laugh at the days to come, knowing her identity is secure in Christ. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and get comfortable. Let's walk this journey together. We're about to take back what's been stolen, create a safe, healing space for you and your family, and rediscover the joy God has waiting for you. Welcome to the Faith Over Addiction podcast. I'm Tanya Gioia, your host, and I have the great honor of being here with Rachel Harrison. I was teasing her earlier that she has several R's in her name, and it's fun to say R's. She is Reverend Rachel Harrison. She has done a lot of work around authentic self, awakening, healing, looking at your own identity. So Rachel, give us an entree into what brought you into this work in the first place.
Oh my goodness. And I love that we're in the world of faith and spirituality and recovery. I am a recovering codependent and people pleaser. I also happen to be a recovered addict, but my real issue was that I was married to an addict. I grew up with addiction, not traditional addiction, but definitely addiction behaviors that helped propel me into those kinds of behaviors of trying to make sure everyone else was okay. My number one thing is, if you're okay, I can be okay. How do I make you okay? Then I can be okay. And so I think I actually drank because it helped me manage emotions and feelings that I didn't know how to work with or understand or feel. And so drinking in a way like evened out it lightened my skin. Maybe it made it so I could
Mm.
be more in my skin. And then I married a man who was wonderful and charismatic and funny and liked to party like I did. And he had traditional alcoholism, traditional addiction genetics, and it played a role really deeply into our relationship and our marriage pretty much right on. And I just didn't have the skills for it, so I became even more of a classic non-treated Al-Anon, or whatever it is. Oh my gosh. And we had a really tough run for about 15 or 20 years, raising our boys, who both are also now dealing with their own addiction. And in 2018, I just had a moment of grace. We'd been sober before and had fallen off, that I had that moment where spirit, I think, speaks to you and just whispers, like there is another way. And I think it's your higher self as well that comes in and says, okay, you've been here doing the lessons. It's time to heal. And so in 2018, I got sober for myself. And more than that, I stepped into the rooms of Al-Anon for the first time, really with diligence. And my life's completely changed since then. So it's been a journey that I think many of us have walked, and yet a powerful journey to continue to talk about. And it ended up creating the podcast Recover Your Soul, which I started the beginning of my journey in 2020, having no idea what I was doing, and now has created a whole thing. And then I got ordained. I don't know, it just became a whole thing.
Wow. When did you recognize, because I love what you said of, yes, I have the substance use disorder that I have recovered from, but that really wasn't the issue.
Mm-hmm.
When did you realize that was lightening your skin, that was a cover rather than the real issue?
I think I knew it all along, which is why I never would admit that I had the disorder, because I knew the whole time on some level that drinking never this is so funny. When some people say they start drinking like they can't stop, right? Drinking would make me sick. From the minute I started drinking, I would throw up. So I spent years trying to figure out how to drink where I could have that relief, but I wouldn't get sick. And I wasn't very good at it. So when I look back on it, I think it's nuts, right? That you would do something to yourself that made you feel so terrible, because I would feel that relief for a minute, but then I couldn't get up to where, like, I could never be completely hammered like people I see they're hammered that don't get sick. That was never me. But I always had this knowing within me that I just wasn't paying attention to. And I think that's one of the things that I teach in my community, is this recognition within yourself of a intuition, a knowing that we've just been pushing away. And if I look back on it, I can definitely tell that I knew so much more about who I was and what was going on, but I was just in this cycle of denial and wanting to control it and make it feel better, and feeling like my life was unmanageable and I didn't know how to handle it. So I just tried to constantly fix and keep everything up. And now I just have such compassion for that self, that includes the self that continued to pick up drinking, thinking, A, that'll make me connect with the person who's drinking I didn't like. B, if he's in a drink, I may as well, because he's an ass, and at least I can feel different, right? And also those moments when it did make me feel part of the group, able to relax and feel my feelings, but it never agreed with me, which I think is so interesting, right? And we do things all the time. Maybe it's not even drinking. Maybe it's maybe it's putting on masks and morphing yourself into situations where you know that you don't fit in with these people, or you don't like showing up, but you keep doing it, right? We've been abandoning ourselves for so long in so many different ways, saying yes when we don't mean yes, all these ways. And I think right now we're in this place where maybe for the first time in society, in culture, where women can kind of raise their head above and say, wait a minute, I don't have to do that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to. I can do something different. So I think that as soon as I really was able to own the fact that alcohol wasn't good for me, it like opened this door to an entire self that I had been denying. And that, I think, is the gift that the work that you do, the work that I do, that's what we're doing, is we're opening the door for women in particular, anybody, men too, but women tend to be the ones that come to us, um, to see their life and themselves in an entirely different way that is filled with love and compassion and tenderness for who we were and the choices we've made. And for me, one of my greatest gifts in all of it has been to let go of the people in my lives in whom I was trying to fix or save or manage. That, which is why I was drinking in the first place, right? So that's been my big thing.
Can we go back and pull on the thread of self-abandonment?
Mm.
How did you recognize that you were self-abandoning? Like you said, women are often, I'm taking care of you, I'm nurturing you, I'm doing this. And self-care, let's just lay it on the line. Self-care is not having your nails and hair done. That's not it. How did you recognize self-abandonment?
I think that it's so intermixed with the confusion of what our roles are, because sometimes we actually quit showing up in the fullness of who we are
Mhm.
because it gets so tied up with the part that is abandoning ourselves, because it's not about not being a great mother or a good wife or taking care of your family. It's the part, this is what I work on in the Recover Your Soul process that has come through these 8 years of this work that I've been doing. You realize that you're actually living out of belief systems that no longer serve you, that were created out of some sort of um, survival mechanism, right? Like in their subconscious. So you're actually abandoning yourself because you're living out of these automatic systems that have beliefs like love looks like this. I'm love looks like me being needed. If I'm not needed, then I'm not valued. I'm being judged, and having people think that I'm not doing the right thing is the worst thing in the world that can happen. That's
Mm,
where the abandonment happens, because it's not about not packing your kids' lunches and making sure everybody has what they need to do. It's the part underneath that has this erroneous, sticky belief system that is running the show that has fear in it,
mm,
right? And so when you start to learn what those things are, like for me, my belief was that I had to make everyone feel okay. If anybody was unhappy, that was the worst thing in the world. And it was my job to make sure everyone was okay. But really, even underneath that was, I didn't know how to be uncomfortable or have conflict. And
mm,
even underneath that was, if there's conflict, everything's going to fall apart, and I won't be loved, I won't be safe. So you go down layer by layer by layer, and then find underneath, I really feel like I won't be safe, I won't be loved, and so my job now is to take care of everybody. Well, as a mom, you do take care of everybody,
yes.
but there's a way to do it that has love and wholeness as the driver, versus fear and and worry and control as the driver. The actions may look the same, but how it feels inside yourself is abandonment or empowerment. And so just being able to see those belief systems and begin to release the ones that don't work anymore, right, can be so powerful in how you show up in each of those situations. But more than that, it's about how you feel inside. So for me, that's what changed, was how I feel inside. I still do all the same stuff. I still cook and clean, and my kids are long since grown and live in California and have families and lives of their own. But um, I still do all the same stuff that I did before. But I used to go around and do it as if I was like Cinderella or something, right? Like,
Yes, prisoner.
woe's me, and I'm doing the things, and I would, get the laundry out, and I'd have resentment, and I can't believe I'm the one unloading the dishwasher again, and I would have all this victimness, um, and it was because I wasn't loving or respecting myself and my feelings or my needs. And so now I don't do those things if I don't want to.
Yeah.
But I want to, which is funny, right? So now I do all the same things, but if I don't want to, I don't.
Let's step back to you outlined this beautifully. Abandonment, empowerment. But I want to go to the underpinning of safety.
That's the key of everything.
When your relationship is your safety, let's just do that as a hypothetical. Your relationship is your safety. The kids, the husband, the parents, the whatever. How do you begin to, it's almost like Velcro. How do you begin to unstick that and come back to yourself?
I think in a lot of our relationships, that people that come to our communities, they're actually not safe. And so one of the things that I realized for myself was I started working with people, and I had a lot of people talking about the word trust. I need to be able to trust him again. If he can, I trust. And I started getting this strong guidance around trust, because trust is actually another level of control. So when you're using it with a human being, what you're saying is, I need to trust that you won't drink again, that when you say you're not going to go out, you're not going to make that choice. We're powerless over everything outside of ourselves. And that feels untenable. It feels like, it feels like the rug's being pulled out if you can't have that. But actually, it's a foundation in spirituality, right? And Buddhism teaches that life is suffering. Suffering is wanting. It's this grasping for, right? And in a way, it's our control of trying to make everything be a certain way so that we can be what? Safe, right? So when I started realizing trust, when we use that word in relationships, what we're really saying is, I don't feel safe, because I have a husband who quit drinking when I did 8 years ago. It was actually his idea to quit drinking, which is kind of funny. And he didn't drink for about 3 years, but then, go out, have a beer, do whatever, not tell me, and then so for like years and years and years, like over and over, he'd be like, well, I'm not 100% sober, right? And if I'm laying my trust on him, like clients are like, well, I need to trust that he's not drinking, I'm powerless over his addiction. I'm powerless over the choices he makes. But I want a relationship that doesn't have trust in a human being, but I can trust God. I can trust source. I can trust the universe. I can trust my relationship with my higher self. And in that trust, that's the only place where there's trust, because you can count on God being there for you. And whatever that is to you, I'm way out there, woo, metaphysical, doesn't matter. It's like, whatever it is to you, that's your foundation. That's how God speaks to you. Because when you're in that trust, you can begin to realize that the importance of safety within your relationships and within your family means that people are going to not meet your expectations. They're going to be human. They're going to fail. So the safety of my relationship is that Rich will now come to me I don't ask him because I don't really care, because we're doing all this other work. And as an addict, I would never go out and have a beer. What a horrible thing to introduce that back into my life after 8 years of sobriety. The last thing I want is to remind my brain what that looks and feels like. Never again. I will not do that to myself, but that's me, right? So for him, if I'm, he's a one of his hobbies is he's a drummer for bands. And so if I'm thinking to myself, are you going to drink when you go out for your show? Can I trust you to, I'm making myself crazy.
Mm.
I'm making myself crazy. And I'm actually eroding the trust within myself that I have with myself, with God. And then I'm actually disrupting the safety in the relationship because I'm trying to control. So what I want to say to him to help, because we did not have a safe relationship, right? So we had to create safety, and safety meant honesty. And honesty means that you will be willing to divulge information that are things that I'm not going to like,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like then you start learning how to accept people for who they are. So we're coming back to belief systems and our roles. And so in all these families, I think a lot of what we don't realize is the safety is everybody wanting it to be a certain way and trying to control and having a belief system of what it's supposed to be. And in that belief system, there's a battlefield that we create around how it's supposed to be. And then we're a whole bunch of people who are not getting their needs met because we have these expectations, right? And so it's a slow work that I believe that we start with ourself, of letting go of control in our own mind. So much of this work we just do with ourselves, and then it begins to flower out and vibrate out and switch, and then safety begins to be created. And in that safety, there's an opportunity for real conversations where you're not just trying to defend or attack, right? You're actually sitting with the people for who they are as human beings, as souls with curiosity. And in that relaxing, safety is created, and the safety allows people to actually show up as who they are. And I think that begins to change everything. So my husband and I, for example, um, he's my best friend now, and here we are after 34 years together, 15 of which I didn't really care for him all the time. Like I loved him, but he was hard for me.
Yeah.
And we are completely different people than we were, even a year ago, because we've allowed each other to grow and begin to be more open to who we actually are versus who we want the other person to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because safety was created in and I don't try to trust him. I trust myself. So I think that it, I mean, and it's I'm trying to wrap my head around if there's anything else to say around it, because I think that the number one thing in it is for us to recognize that we think, you said in the beginning, that our family is our safety. And I think we have to switch that to, we are safe within ourselves because we are children of God. And then we are having this wild ride experience on Earth School, as I call it, right? So when we have to continue to come back to our own healing. We have to continue to come back to our own relationship with God. We have to continue to come back to our own well-being. And in that, the healing happens all around us.
It is fabulous to watch this work through. In the Christian tradition, we would say, take the board out of your own eye before you pluck the splinter out of someone else's eye. I don't know that we have a great concept of that. And I think you just laid it out in the sense that I'm trying to provide safety for myself by controlling this other person that I was never meant to control, nor was I meant to save. In the Christian tradition, there's one savior,
And it's not me, thank goodness.
Right.
And then the quest underneath that becomes, I love how you paired trust and honesty, because in the big book it says those who are unable to be honest with themselves are the ones who don't make it out. It has
That's right.
nothing to do with me being honest with you. It has to do with me being honest with myself.
Rigorous honesty is the word that it uses.
Yeah,
Rigorous honesty.
rigorous honesty. And that's about with self.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't know who self is because you've been a people pleaser, and because that you talked about earlier, you didn't, the alcohol never really gave you the effect that it can give other people. People pleasing, Elizabeth Gilbert has some great work on this, her latest book.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I drink people. that's
Mm-hmm.
that's how I get high, in that sense. With all of that camouflage and cover, how do you begin to peel away and go, I can trust myself? Is there a small exercise? Is there something where you did a big thing by saying, I'm going to create safety? How can you create safety if you don't trust yourself?
When I started this work, I have a new book out. It's called Recover Your Soul, Spiritual Path of Healing of Addiction, People Pleasing, and Codependency.
Yeah.
And it is about what I now call the 9-step Recover Your Soul process, which is not a process that I created. It is the spiritual process. It's just the words in which I put it, right? And the book walks through my own healing journey, um, and it's a spiritual memoir, but it's somebody that had just read Elizabeth Gilbert, that was one of my beta readers, said more dirt, because Elizabeth is so good at like bringing you into the juicy raw. And I was like, I'm more of a wide brush gal, you know what I mean? And I really want people to resonate with my marriage and with my kids, and growing up and not feeling seen, and those are the important things. But it was through the 12 steps. It's like, how do you run a race? Well, you don't show up at the end, right? You've got to start, and maybe you train, and maybe you start by just walking down the street, and then maybe you can walk around the block, and then maybe you jog down the street. So it's the same sort of thing on a spiritual journey, which is that I have people that come to me all the time, and they find a belief, and they're like, okay, now how do I get rid of it? Like, I want to turn it, right? I did the 12 steps, and they were really powerful, but I almost immediately felt the knowing that they were created for men 100 years ago in a very specific situation, and that I couldn't help but gentle them, because
Mm,
I am somebody who the Christ consciousness of love of heart is everything to me, right? Like, coming from love is everything to me. Well, I understand that they needed more of a, tough thing, and there's humility in the rooms that needs to happen. You need to have your ass kicked sometimes, and have to show up again and again and again. But I almost immediately wanted to soften it.
mm.
And
I'm with you
so
on that. I would, what I have understood and been in mixed AA and Al-Anon meetings, I would have cried if somebody had said that to me. But it was exactly what they needed to hear, how they needed
absolutely.
to hear it,
Yeah,
especially with so much father wounding. They
totally.
needed some very firm hand. So
Yes.
I agree with you, and I'm glad you're doing that. So pardon my interruption. I just
But
wanted to.
as a people pleaser, right? As a people pleaser, we tend to have a belief system underneath around our responsibility. And so, one of the things that happened was, in the 12 steps, there's a section where you look at your character flaws. And so you've done step 5, where you've admitted your life to somebody, right? And then you do step 6, which is ask God to remove your defects of character. I couldn't get around that,
Mm,
because I don't think we're defected.
mm,
And as I was doing the 12 steps in my own life, I was immersing myself in spirituality. I was raised Buddhist. I went to a metaphysical unity church for 25 years. And I just all of a sudden, it was like that door that I described earlier, like opened, and there was space, and I was just filling it up. And I couldn't find defects, because I
Mm.
think that we make choices, sin is missing the mark.
Yes.
And we make choices out of our woundedness and out of our pain that moves us in directions that are around fear.
Hmm.
But when you're connected to your wholeness, when you're connected to God, when you're connected to spirit, you remember an essence of yourself and you say, oh, look, this is a mark that I missed. So I started seeing the character defects as, instead of as like defects, I saw them as protectors. That these are the protectors of your heart, and that there is a new way to be. There's a more compassionate way to be. So my first run at the 9 steps was a rewrite of the 12 steps. And it was just saying, well, let's just say it a little bit nicer, right? And then in 2024, I think, beginning of 2024, I got this major download to rewrite them and rework them in more clear to the work that I had been doing for myself and been doing with hundreds of people and coaching. And the first step, instead of it being powerless, the first step was ready for awakening. That at that moment when you come to yourself, and it's you starting the race, right?
Yes.
It's you starting the race and saying, oh my gosh, I'm looking at the world, I'm looking at life, and something isn't working here. What if I realize that I can come to myself? What if I realize there's something within me that's here to be healed? What if I'm willing to see that the way that I see it might be harming me, and that there's a new way to be? That's the first step. And then the steps that come after that. So I think that the answer to your question is, there is wording and paths and steps and people who have a path to walk,
Mm.
right? And the reason why I think my podcast has become so popular is, um, there is something so important about sitting in the rooms of Al-Anon or AA, but there's a wanting of more, right? And they
Yes.
are required, and understandably so, to stay in their lane, because if they don't stay in their lane, it gets soupy, right?
Hmm.
But there's people who are in the lane, and then they're like, but I want more. I want to branch out.
Bigger expansion. Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's where we come in, because we're still speaking that speak. So we're not saying, oh, don't do that. Because no, definitely go those rooms if that helps you, right? But there's a more, and you will find what that walk is, because God will lead you to the walk,
Yes.
right? And so whatever it is, you just have to come, it comes back to the beginning of the conversation, which is like our intuition. When we start actually listening to the intuition, the number of people I say when I start coaching, I'm like, so how'd you find, how'd you find me or the podcast? And it used to always be because they searched Al-Anon, because I used to talk a lot about Al-Anon in the beginning, because that's really where I was. And more often now people say, I don't know. I don't know how it popped up, because that's spirit, right? Like that's the beauty of the universe showing up for you. So you start to trust those. So if somebody, my steps appeal to them, which is just a gentle walk of understanding these belief systems, letting them go, connecting to God, and I'm, more on the kind of woo spiritual side. But then there's also, the recovery groups that are in churches. There's some really beautiful systems, and whatever system is the right system for you, just start walking it. That's it,
Yes.
right? Just start walking it, commit to it, commit to yourself, commit to healing yourself, let go of everybody else and all their issues. And that is self-care. And if
You,
you want to get your nails done while you're doing that, that's great. But
yeah,
that's
and
that's
I'm
the
not saying there's
self-care.
anything wrong with that. I'm saying that that is not providing the deep wholeness that we
No.
need. And you tripped into my favorite step is came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I think step 2 is super strong, but you have to do step 1 to do that. Co-suffering, compassion, co-suffering. and the recognition that that other person, whoever I'm trying to save, help, nurture, is not the only sufferer. That you encapsulated that fantastically. Now, what happens in the relationship when there is a pulling back, when you pull back a little bit and say, okay, I am going to sleep in this morning, or no, I really don't have time to pick that up or take care of that. How do you temper that with love?
I think we've misaligned what love means, right? So one of the big things that I teach that may be different than how other people have heard it is I talk a lot about souls. And it doesn't matter, I'm not trying to have a certain doctrine of belief system. Almost all spiritual teachings and religions speak of a soul, right? So whether you believe souls come back again or whether this is your only soul time, here you are with a soul within you. And we think we know what that soul is supposed to learn. And when I started realizing I needed to let go of what I thought the journey of my oldest son was, who was the one who really struggled the most, which included self-harm and addiction and really difficult mental health issues in his teens. It was in the beginning of my recovery, I had this awareness that I was trying to control who I thought he should be and what I thought his suffering should look like, and that I was trying to keep him from suffering. And I had this just epiphany that was he's entitled to his suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And I am suffering to this co-suffering, right? I am feeling his feelings. I'm taking over his feelings. I'm doing his life, right?
Mm-hmm.
His life is a response and a reaction on some level to an alcoholic home in which he grew up. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, he is responsible for his own well being and responsible for the choices in which he makes. And if
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to save him from his choices, I'm actually potentially sabotaging the lessons that he might be needing to get that maybe he has to get later. Right.
Right.
And I needed that soul piece to be able to let go. And I needed the piece that said, if God is there for me, God is there for them. And I'm trying to be the God in their life.
Yes.
And if I can trust that God is there for me, and that's where I'm to put all my energy, I can't make him be or see anything, but I can trust him. I just use the word trust. I
Mm-hmm.
can trust God has him. And I
Yeah.
can create a safety situation for him to say, I love you. I want you to not have to struggle so hard. But man, if this is the walk you're walking, um, you're responsible for it. And it was not an easy, and it didn't happen all in one day. But over these years, I have handed my family's life back to them. And
Mm-hmm.
what's fascinating is we are so good.
Mm-hmm.
We are so good. And one of the things that's one of the lines that I say is my healing heals the world, right? So I'm not healing because I think it's going to heal the world, but guess what? My healing, the way that I started showing up differently in my family, did profoundly change my family.
Yes. And I
So
can confirm that as well. Is when I started doing my deep work, I now have a relationship with my oldest that I wouldn't have had I continued
right.
on the path that I was on. He didn't go to therapy. He didn't show up and do the work. He didn't seek out the resources. But that's where I think mothers and women have the opportunity to truly be the heart of the home, not because I'm giving them my heart to work with, but because I am looking at who it is that I actually trust and allowing
Yes.
them to be who they are, which, as you have described, can be very wounding.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting in that wound is part of the growth, at least for me, of saying,
Absolutely.
I cannot save this person, and I'm with you, and I hope the audience is listening. I did a lot of things wrong. I can tell you how to do it
Oh,
wrong
I for sure made some mistakes.
very, very well. And that that I think that is where we get stuck in the shame spiral
Mm-hmm.
of if only I had, if only I had. Well,
100%.
there's no going back. There's just going forward.
And what if we actually reframe it? What if we actually look at it in a completely different way, which is that everything's has a purpose?
Mm.
I think that we want to almost deny it and say, not deny it, what's the word I'm looking for, it's like you want to cover it up, right? You're like, well,
Mhm.
that was an ugly situation, I'm just going to put that under
And
the
we're not
bed.
going to talk about
We're
that in
not
our
going to
family
talk about it.
stories or family narrative or all that when we could flip it over and go, hey, I really did that wrong. I'd like to talk about that a little bit, and maybe
Here's
we
what I learned.
from it. Here's what I've learned. I recently said to my 21-year-old, I said, yeah, that's not my belief structure, but my belief structure is not your belief structure.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, you needed to do what was in my household, but now, and he just looked at me like a deer in the headlights. And I'm like, yes, we got the message across. I'm not trying to impose on your freedom. You are at this point an adult doing your own thing. Uh, There's some it's interesting. There's some triggering when he wants to say, well, you did. And I think it's a great opportunity to say, yeah, I did. Affirm it, because that's what alcoholics
Yes.
don't do. Affirm, yes, I did do that. And I have grown.
I think one of the number one things, I mean, if in classic 12-step amends, that you go and you say, I know that I harmed you. And then the other half of that is you say, is there anything else I need to know?
Mm.
And one of the things that if you really look at it on a spiritual level, you go into you go into confession in Catholic religion in its most ideal and pure state to be able to to share with God where you see that you have missed the mark,
Mhm.
and to be loved and to be
Yes.
forgiven, right? But we don't take it like that. It's like it's guilt, and then you still hang on to it, and then you're still a bad person. All of that is up here in our construct. And all of that is in those belief systems that, that we're working on dismantling. So what I believe that we're doing now is like this huge shift around, what if we forgave ourselves from a true perspective, which is God loves you. And just
No
like a
matter what.
child that you see, make mistakes, you don't not love your child because they stole money from you, or snuck food out of the refrigerator, or, whatever it was. Even when my kids were doing the most difficult and painful things, my heart ached. I was mad at them. I was hurt, but I never stopped loving them. So what if we allowed ourselves to believe that it's the same? And so in the forgiveness for ourselves, especially for the things that we did as parents, it's like you don't drag up the wounds, but when the door opens to have conversations, you can, without needing to justify, have your child say things to you, and to truly listen from the heart of yourself. And I like to sometimes pretend like, when I did my fifth step, my sponsor had me have God sit in the chair next to me, right, which was really powerful. So sometimes when I'm in those situations and I know I'm going to have a hard conversation, or I know powerful things are going to come in, I call in my guides and angels, but people can call whatever they want. But you have Jesus sit next to you. You have God sit next to you. You feel that presence. You know that you're being held, so that when you're listening to the words, You don't take them in from your harmed self. You take them in from your whole self so that that person has this opportunity to truly say, and then for you to say, yeah, I did do those things. And oh man, it's hard to even hear that,
Mm.
you know? And what else? What else? What more? Because one of the things that Rich and I have experienced in the healing of our marriage, and this was in the book, he wrote the foreword for the book, which was really sweet. His view of our life and my view of our life, two totally different views. 100%, right? And I say that in the beginning of the book. If you brought in Alex and Bodhi, they would have their completely different views.
Mm-hmm.
There's no right view in it. We
Mm-hmm.
are all entitled to how we see it. And you probably have the same situation. I have two kids. If you were to ask them what their childhood was like, one would say that I was, I had a dad that was hard and intense and sometimes verbally abusive. And the other one's like, dude, my dad was so awesome. And we went skating and snowboarding. And he was kind of tough, but man, he's my best friend. Same
Right.
house, right?
Right.
Same man.
Absolutely.
So it's like respecting, I think it really is respecting each of our journeys. And again, it's like, come back to you, turn the attention to yourself.
And if you don't know who you is, that's the time to get quiet, to go back to those early memories, to feel through that. Because
Feel
you
through
can't
it.
heal what you can't feel, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about your community, your book, where people can reach out to you. They've loved this conversation. How do they connect with you, Rachel?
Thank you so much. So the Recover Your Soul podcast is on all streaming platforms and on YouTube. And I'm very grateful for that community. And I had literally had no idea what I was doing when I started this in 2020. So here we are. And that now has become a community where we have a once a month free support group on Zoom on the first Monday of every month, and beautiful groups of people come, some of the same people, some new people. It's always a little bit different, and it's a place where you can kind of have a meeting, right? But it's outside of other meeting realms and connect with other people. We break into small groups. And then one of the things that's really come out of my doing personal coaching is how much work can happen in such a short time when you are in this different platform. But then I was having retreats, which I have retreats every year, and the work that you can do with people is so huge.
Yes.
So I've created more group coaching situations. So one of them is parents of adult children, and that meets twice a month. And I love that. And because it's really us meeting with other people who are in the same, but it's still Rev Rachel doing spiritual coaching on the Recover Your Soul process. And then I created individual steps for the Recover Your Soul process that people can come in and do on their own. And I have a collective to be able to have access to those. My main thing is just to be of service. I am so grateful that I get to do this full time, and it's an absolute gift and honor. And so I try to have everything be where it's accessible to everybody and doesn't, I'm not like a big ticket, buy my thing coach. I'm really here to create community and be a resource to people. And then the new book, Recover Your Soul's on Amazon. And everything's at recoveryoursoul.net. So there you go.
I was going to ask you that. Where's your .com.net, those types of things. I'm assuming that on the .net, if they're interested in the once a month, if they're interested in the adult children, that
Everything.
all of that will be present and they can learn more about you. Give us the name of your podcast one more time.
Recover Your Soul. And then I have a bonus podcast called Recover Your Soul bonus podcast on Apple Podcasts and Patreon. So I'm twice a week.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
A lot of work. A lot of work right there. Well, Rev Rachel, thank you for being here today. We will, of course, have all your information down below it. You have really hit some great topics: trust, honesty, safety, compassion. We've covered a lot in the last 45 minutes, and I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love the work that you're doing. And I just think it's so important that there are these voices out there to remind us that we're not alone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Faith Over Addiction podcast. Remember, nothing changes until something changes. Today is your day to step out in faith and make a difference. You are a daughter of the King, a woman who can spark incredible ripple effects of hope and healing, not just in your own life, but in your family, your community, and God's kingdom. If this episode encouraged you, bless someone else by sharing it. Send it to a friend who needs a little hope, or post it on Instagram and tag me. I'd love to hear what resonated most with you. And hey, if you're ready to reclaim your God-given identity and create a safe, loving space for yourself and those you care about, let's talk. Book a quick call with me today, and I'd love to hear your story and help you take the next step. Oh, and don't forget to head over to Apple Podcasts, search for Faith Over Addiction, and leave me a review. Your feedback not only makes my day, but helps other women find this podcast and step into freedom too. You are strong, you are loved, and the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Until next time, keep walking boldly into the life God has for you.